Thanks, everybody. This presentation is a little bit different because I'm actually looking at carers of people who are aging with dementia, and hopefully it will have some synergies with some of the presentations that we've already heard today. This project is part of an NH and MRC partnership which commenced in 2013, so we're into the final stretches at the moment. It was a partnership centre out of the University of Sydney for functional and cognitive decline. And this particular project was from the subunit entitled Pathways to Care. The project title or activity title was the psychosocial impact on the young people having a parent with having a parent with younger onset dementia. Sorry, too much sushi I think at lunchtime. The rice is making me sleepy. So this is the team. Karen Hutchinson, who's now doing her PhD around this particular topic, was heading up this particular project. I came on board as the qualitative researcher. Also Associate Professor Chris Roberts of Uni Sydney and the Professor Sue Curl, who is actually the principal investigator for the entire partnership. Just as a bit of background, and for the purposes of this presentation, young onset dementia is defined as dementia in people under the age of 65 years. It's currently affecting almost 26,000 Australians, and people are diagnosed between the ages of 30, in a very few cases up to 65 years. The problem is that it can be very difficult to diagnose in younger people. You know, there's lots of other things going on in people's lives, and it's quite easily missed in the early stages. And it's less common than dementia occurring after the age of 65. 1 in 4 people with young onset dementia has a child under the age of 18 years, and in fact we interviewed 2 or 3 people who were 8 years old when their parent was diagnosed with young onset dementia. So you can imagine the implications for them of that. Current service provision is trying, but it doesn't consider the needs of the entire family or the entire family unit quite often. The focus is on the person with dementia, obviously. And the emotional and physical impact on family needs does need to be addressed a little bit further. Another study by Roach and his colleagues in 2012 also said that clinicians felt that information about family members was not valued clinically at the time the person was diagnosed. Now, there are some key issues around this, primarily that young carers of parents with illness are known to be at greater risk of developing mental health issues than their peers, particularly during their formative teenage years. An earlier study by Karen Hutchinson found that young persons and children felt that they did get overlooked by service providers. On top of this, many young carers live in single-parent families, and obviously the burden of caring is much greater in that situation. Despite all of that, young people are reluctant, or young carers are reluctant to seek help because they're afraid of the unwanted scrutiny of their family, the stigma of having a parent with dementia at a younger age, and also they're afraid of breakup of the family and being taken away from their family, regardless of how desperate the situation might be. So the big one is stigma really around dementia, and it really sets that person apart from others, and that's the carer and the person with dementia. And transferred stigma amongst young carers is of real concern. So we looked at this from the social model of disability, which is directly opposite to the medical model of disability, really, where the medical model perceives the person as the problem that needs solving. And so with some of the young carers, and particularly living in a family unit, the social model of disability is more appealing in that it really looks at how you can overcome those negative societal barriers and attitudes. So the social model of disability regards disability as socially constructed, and it looks at a more holistic way of viewing disability, environmental, economic, cultural barriers experienced rather than focus on the diagnosis or the impairments, as does the medical model. What it seeks to achieve is some shift in community perceptions and focus from impairments to enable interaction and inclusivity within the environment. And young persons with parents living with young onset dementia are disadvantaged and disabled by their environment, and they do feel excluded and discriminated against. Very quick slide on the methodology. It was a qualitative descriptive design with 12 participants, semi-structured interviewing, as I said, retrospective data from persons who were 8 years old and older when their parents started showing symptoms of young onset dementia. 3 key themes across the trajectory of the experience of the young carer were invisibility. They felt marginalised within society. We looked at connectivity and how they interacted with their world and the impact of interactions on them and importance of social ties with significant other. And being empowered, so how they used strategies to enable them to increase control over their lives. Okay. Now, just in terms of sub-themes, invisibility, isolation from their usual social environment, and they got very good at making pretext of this and hiding what was actually going on at home. With this person saying, with everyone kind of busy, I could present well in most circumstances and kind of be whatever you wanted me to be. Neglect, so a lot of them were juggling lots of challenges. This person said, Mum wanted me to get cigarettes, so she'd sell the packet of cigarettes to the kids at school and make money and then buy milk and bread. Perceptions of marginalisation, exclusion from friendships. This participant said that because someone had mentioned that her mum was a bit different, she thought her mum might be smoking marijuana, and then suddenly no one was allowed at my house anymore. In terms of connectivity, family and friends, the child felt that there was a role reversal, so they became the parent. This person said, I feel like I have a teenage daughter, and no one is keeping thread of where you are and how you're going. There was a bit of disconnect with health and service providers, and that failed connection was attributed to some siloing of services. And one health worker actually said to a participant, this is the sort of thing that you'll be dealing with from now on, and you're your mum's only resource. They mentioned young onset key workers, but those are quite under-resourced currently. School did provide some stability for some. One said it was the most stable things that she'd had in years as a teenager. But generally, schools are quite unaware of what is happening in the home environment. In terms of empowerment, the need for a sense of direction was important, and group support was highly valued amongst these age groups. Other kids my age have been through something really horrible, but they've got through it and they've come out the other side fine. So it was kind of mirroring what other people were going through. Being collaborative, so involving young people in working in partnerships with organisations and sharing stories, gave them a sense of empowerment. This person spoke to medical students at university, also creating awareness amongst health professionals, where one person said it seems to be just a bit of a blind spot, really. So our overarching discussion points really are using the social model of disability as a guiding framework, looking at societal attitudes and perhaps addressing those faced by young persons with parents with young onset, looking at socially constructed disablement as a social concern rather than an individual or a family unit issue, addressing the conspiracy of silence and maintaining social connectedness, wider awareness within the education system in particular, environment and non-judgmental support. I'm sorry, I've forgotten I highlighted those. I shall carry on regardless. Right, so I'm on the ball now. Just finally, the need for greater cooperation between sectors in providing support, looking at the further development of the key worker role, which is young onset dementia specific as a linchpin, right from the early stages, and development of social media usage within youth mental health sector to reduce stigma and encourage help-seeking behaviour, and using the social model of disability to facilitate abandonment of a siloed approach to service provision and adopt a more integrated approach. And if you're interested as well, Karen Hutchinson is now doing her PhD in this particular area. and is looking at some of those issues in much more depth. So thank you.
So questions or comments?
It's just really a comment about the key worker, and I know that the funding for that actually runs out next year, with the changes to the aged care funding model, and that is an essential service that's
absolutely
needed.
yes. Yeah, you can see why as well. Yeah, thank you.
There was another hand.
May I draw your attention to a recently published book called Navigating Alzheimer's by Karen Cranwell. Her husband had early onset dementia. She was his carer for 18 years. She writes a remarkable personal story with key points for carers at the end of each chapter. It's really a valuable publication.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much, Con. It was great to have you. Thank you for joining us.